everybody. It's the Blizzard King. I love you guys. I'll talk to y'all later.
Well, I be damn. Look who done come up in here.
Hey, it's Kunta Kinte and Ebola.
Famine and blood diamond.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the broadcast. This is Dennis Spurling, also known as the Blizzard King, also known as Uncle D. And a lot of people have been watching my broadcasts and my discussions about Nick Fuentes, and I want to also talk a little bit about the manosphere and, you know, how I became an advocate for black men, and even right now with the delineation movement with foundational black Americans delineating from the rest of the Pan-African group. And all of that fits into my advocacy for black men. Now I want you all to understand something. The only reason I even utilize my YouTube page is because it was a product of my Facebook presence. Now on Facebook, beginning back in 2010, which is where I started, you know, I ended up getting divorced. And my ex-wife at the time, not really my ex-wife, but some of her relatives decided to take pot shots at me. And, you know, normally I was always very quiet. Many people who went to college with me would tell you, Dennis never really spoke on a lot of issues. I was pretty quiet. I kind of kept to myself. I didn't really have a whole lot to say to a lot of people. I kept my thoughts to myself. But upon being attacked by some of her relatives, I said, well, you know what? You know, this is what I do, you know. And when I say this is what I do, a person who grew up in the environment I grew up in, and I'm specifically referring to Los Angeles, California, back in the 80s and 90s. And this is back before, you know, being hood was fashionable. You know, back when gangbanging wasn't something that was people aspired to be. Girls wouldn't talk to you, you know, if you were from South Central L.A. or Compton, et cetera, et cetera. Not seriously, you know. But now it's a different kind of vibe. Everybody wants to be tough. Everybody wraps their masculinity up and who they are and their level of importance based on what set they are affiliated with, et cetera. I'm glad to see that that's kind of fading out now because, you know, I lost many friends, many relatives to the penitentiary or the grave because of, you know, gang activity, if you will. But being from South Central L.A., you know, I don't mess with people. I don't bother people. It's the culture. You really don't go out looking for trouble because, you know, trouble will find you. And unlike other places, trouble will follow you home. You know, you had LAPD, you know, they would jack you up, hem you up, as we used to say. You had Mexicans. They were anti-black even back then. Some of them were cool, but still, you know. And then, of course, you had black people who you had to deal with. And so, you know, you can get it from any direction. So the thing was, best thing to do is leave people alone. And so that's kind of what I did. But at the point where my ex-wife, you know, kind of her relatives, not my ex-wife per se, but her relatives decided to say things, I had stuff to say back. And what I found when I would make posts about my experiences being married, there were so many other men who kind of chimed in. And they were like, yeah, me too. I was dealing with the same thing. And so you have to understand something. I went to school all the way up through till I was 27 years old. Not only did I get a bachelor's degree, I got a Juris Doctorate, studied, scored a perfect score on the bar examination. Perfect score. All 9 out of 9. That was the way they did it back then. And I went to school in Louisiana. Perfect score. When the rest of the school was not doing as well, I think we had a 33% bar passage rate. I got a perfect score. I wasn't the only one, but I got what was called a 9 out of 9. Passed all the parts of the test. I studied for 9 weeks, sometimes up to 16 hours a day. You know, I was dedicated because, you know, my thing was I was not going to fail. I was not going to let my people down. The people who sent me out to school, who wanted to see me succeed. I knew it was a lot of professors and teachers and etc. who wanted to see me win because I represented so many from my neighborhood, so many from my community back in L.A. And here I am all the way out in Louisiana, and I didn't want to fail. So I did what I had to do, and, you know, I carried the weight, and I got across the goal line, got a perfect score. As soon as I graduated and got my JD, I went back to school. I got a scholarship to attend Tulane University, very prestigious university in New Orleans, to go to law school and work on what is called a legal law master's degree in environmental and energy related law. I initially planned to be an environmental lawyer. Prior to that, I wanted to be a veterinarian. As you all know, I have a lot of little cats and animals and dogs. Got a couple of them roving around right now. You might see them in the screen. You know, I loved animals, and that was kind of, you know, my thing. I always like to take care of little animals. Very protective, you know, I am. Now that I look back, always very protective of smaller things and whatnot. You know, very defensive when it comes to protecting what I call the innocent or the downtrodden. And that's something that's going to play into the conversation a little later on. That's my personality. And I'm just trying to help you understand how I got to where I am. This is organic. But nevertheless, they were jumping on me. I jumped back. I had stuff back to say. Many men began to chime in and start sharing their stories. And so, my goodness, man, for like, you know, 7 years, you know, I'm on social media, and, you know, I'm making a reputation for myself. And the thing is, you got to understand, I'm a practicing lawyer at the time. So, you know, and that's a very rare thing. You don't have a lot of black attorneys. You don't have a lot of black male attorneys, especially, you know, practicing in the area I practice, which is personal injury. Most black people are locked out of that. Black, Hispanic, most of us are locked out of that because it's so lucrative. And you really have to work with people and know how to do it to be successful at it. And here I've been at it for 25 years. Most black lawyers, and if you do a survey, most of them do a little personal injury if they can get away with it, but it's so cost intensive and so much paperwork, they don't deal with it. Most of us do criminal law. Most of us do family law. Some of us may try to get into a little corporate gig here and there, but it's not what I do. I'm doing high-level class action cases. Of course, I work with so many other people, and, you know, it's just an honor and a pleasure. But the bottom line is I can handle it, and I do a good job at it. But nevertheless, way back then, you know, it was, you know, I was saying things, and, you know, people didn't like it. And so I'm sure I alienated colleagues. I alienated former classmates. I remember one time about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, some people up at Grambling decided to have a mass call with me on the phone. I'm like, and then, you know, a bunch of ladies that I went to school with. Keep in mind, I didn't date any of the ladies that I went to GSU with. I didn't really start because I was trying to get out of school, man. I didn't want a distraction from some woman. I had a chick that I was dealing with back in L.A., but, you know, I was not trying to get caught up with any of that. So I don't really know them like that. They know me. Maybe we were part of little clubs, but I kind of kept to myself. I had my own little clique of homeboys from Los Angeles, you understand, or Southern California in general. But I kept to myself, so I don't really know any of those people. They just know me from the campus. And people make assumptions. Oh, we went to the same school together, and if I see you out and about in New York or Ohio or Detroit, yeah, we went to school, and people would think you were best friends, but I don't know these people. Bottom line, they got me on the line, and they had a lot to say. Oh, you don't like black women. All I'm doing is reposting what men, sometimes black men, oftentimes black men, are saying about their relationships with black women. This was very unpopular. Okay, this was very unpopular back in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. I simply reposted what a lot of brothers had to say, or sometimes I would take what they say and I would refashion it, correct the spelling, etc., and put it in a way in which people could understand. I put a post up back when Facebook started letting you do like viral posts. And I said, the problem between black men and black women is that black women don't respect black men. That thing got like 30,000 shares and like, you know, 100,000 likes inside of a week. I'm like, oh my God. So I knew then I struck a nerve. Okay. But, so from there, the divorce went final, but also a friend of mine, a cat from Jamaica said, man, you need to go. Guy I went to school with at Grambling, he said, man, you need to go to hang out in the DR. I'm like, well, really? Didn't even know what a DR was. I mean, you mean Africa? I'm not trying to go to Africa. Said, no, the DR is in Colombia. I mean, in the Caribbean. So I'm like, all right. So I, thought about it for a minute. So it's like 2012. My divorce was finalized in 2011. I was hanging out in Houston. It's still the same story. You're still dealing with the same type of women that, because keep in mind, I graduated from law school at 27. I was engaged by the time I was 29. So I never really got a chance to enjoy my wealth and my success. I jumped right into a marriage, not really even knowing anything about marriage, not really knowing anything about serious relationships. I dated a little bit, but how can you really date when you're in school? It's nearly impossible. You don't have the time, the energy, the resources. Your primary goal is education. So I really didn't really have the type of men around me that could communicate with me in a way in which I could truly understand. There are brothers that would always drop hints to you. My Uncle Slim, who I talk about in my books, which were published back in 2016, he would always try to drop, a little knowledge on me. But unless you have that lived experience about what it's like to actually interact with women, especially black women, on a daily basis, you just don't know, because other men and other races they're not keen to our culture. You can't ask a white man a question about black women and think he'll understand. Same thing with Hispanic men or Asian men or whatever. They're basing their experiences on the women in their culture. And I use black, but when I say black, I'm talking about North American, American Negro, foundational black American culture. That's what I'm talking about. It's just a different dynamic. And so, nevertheless, man, I probably wasn't ready to get married, you know what I'm saying? And didn't really have the role models. And then exponentially, I started making a lot of money, and the thing about making money and getting older, you're not going to take the disrespect, and you're not going to be as pliable to disrespect from anybody when you start making some real money and when you start getting older. So couple those two things together, and then being a high paid professional and knowing who I am and my success and where I weight in the world, and then compare myself to my peers. I had a white friend about the same age as we had the same office, we made about the same amount of money, and his wife gave him so much deference. He had two little girls. Our children, funny enough, they're about the same age. He had two little girls. His wife just gave him so much deference, whereas mine at the time, and I was only married for like 4 years. So, I just like, nah, this ain't me. So I'm divorced now. I got married in 2005 to my ex-wife. Got divorced around finalized, I believe, in 2010. And so I started traveling. I went to the DR, hung out in the DR, and I realized, okay, I really wasn't feeling the hanging out with the working girls situation. So I ended up going to a city the next city over and just hanging out there. But I like the vibe. And so this is 2011. So I'm feeling the vibe. Didn't know that these people looked just like me. Didn't know that these people came in all array of colors. My only introduction to what we call Latino or Afro-Latino, which is really just black people who were colonized by the Spanish and speak Spanish, was, my only introduction was like what we call mestizos or Mexicans growing up in L.A. And so, now here I am in this country of basically colored people of all different colors. And, of course, you had a sprinkling of Haitians there and so on and so forth. I'm like, wow, these people really, they look like me. I like the food. The women are beautiful. These people look like a lot of people I know from the States, especially when you go places like Louisiana, South Louisiana specifically, where, you have a very a montage, a mixture of people from different ethnic groups, French, Native American, African, European, etc. Then you got it all mixed in there. So when you start going to that Caribbean island, you're like, wow, this kind of feels like normal to me, you know. By comparison, when I went to Europe, I didn't have that same experience. I ended up hanging out over there in 2012. But, you know, the thing is, it was at that point I said, you know, I need to see some more of this world that we live in. So I would go back and forth to places like DR. Mind you, I'm separated at this point. I'm divorced. Divorce is finalized, so I'm traveling to the DR. Of course, I would go to the traditional spots like, you know, Miami, etc. But it was nothing like going to the DR. I would go to Jamaica, like that vibe. It was pretty cool. This is back before it kind of got how it is now. You know, the people would come in from Canada and Europe, the UK and the United States, and they'd come down there and party for the different weekends and whatnot. Kind of like that. You know, it was still a little bit of an Americanized attitude, and I think that had a lot to do with the fact that the women spoke English. And so that culture kind of rubbed off. They had the music, they had the television, and they had the movies, you know, and so the culture kind of rubbed off on the Jamaicans. Same thing probably with the Trinidadians. So you had a more of an Americanized, Europeanized culture even back then. This is 15 years ago. And so I wasn't feeling that too much. But then, you know, around about 2015, I met a fella up at the park. He's a Q dog. Member of Omega Psi Phi. For you all who don't know, I'm a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. And so we kind of like, yeah, what's up, man? You know, and come to find out, he had been traveling to Colombia, right? And I'm thinking, oh, man, I'm not trying to go down there and get caught up in some narco trafficante. You know, I'm cool with the little DR situation in Jamaica and the other little Caribbean islands and whatnot. I'm cool with that. Mind you, this is not the first time I've left the country in my life. I think the first time I went to Brazil, this is before I got married, but I'm like, this is not real. This is a dream. Went down there in 2004, and so I just like, nah, that ain't real. Even though it was probably like, wow, this is, you know, I had just, the week before I had met what at that time was my ex-wife, so it's kind of like, oh man, I got a girlfriend, you know, I'm supposed to get married. This is what you do. You go to school, get a job, pay your bills. I had the job. I've been paying my bills. Now it's time to get married. I did everything the right way. I made it out of South Central L.A. and all that craziness. I went to school. I got the best education I could get. I was successful. I'm an attorney. I work hard. 2 years after graduating, now it's time to get married. This is what they tell men to do. They said, if you do this, you'll be successful. I had a house, etc. Cute little black American woman from South Louisiana, you know, member of AKA. She, you know, her family's from Louisiana and Mississippi. My family's from Mississippi, North Carolina, and Louisiana. So, you know, it was perfect. You know what I'm saying? It was all, I did everything we were supposed to do, and it didn't work out. And so now here I am traveling around the Caribbean and now South America and Central America. I went to places like Costa Rica. Didn't really feel it. Wasn't really feeling that much because there wasn't a lot of black people down there. But, you know, DR, Colombia, and Brazil. I'm like, wow, there are a lot of people of African descent down here. Matter of fact, some of the people who I see who are closest to the African origin, I would say, I found to be in Cartagena, Colombia. I mean, you got some pure 100% sub-Saharan Africans down there. I'm like, wow, and the culture is pervasive, you know? And so as far as, you know, the racial line that my generation was taught never to cross, in other words, don't date white, don't date, it's like there is no racial, these are clearly people of African descent. And so I was very comfortable there, DR, Colombia. But, you know, the thing was, now here it is, it's 5-6 years later after my divorce, and I'm realizing that I like how I'm being treated by the culture. I like the respect and deference that I'm given solely because I am a man. And so, you know, I didn't have to do anything. And then I noticed that I had a taxi driver down in Colombia. I met him the first time I was down there, 2015. Real cool, Mr. Alex. And man, that guy got more respect from his wife and children than I was getting as an attorney, as a successful, wealthy attorney. And I'm like, man, so they just give him respect because he's a man. You don't have to earn it, because here in America, they always tell you, man, you got to earn your respect. You got to do this, you got to do that. And then when you get that, and that, when you become, the person with, 6 feet tall and six figures and six pack, not that I ever had a six pack. I might have had a keg of beer. But anyway, bottom line is, man, it's like they move the goalposts. When you get to that, oh no, well now you got to do this, now you got to do that. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. Because, see, when I start doing my comparing and contrasting, and I start realizing, well, you know what? This is something I'm supposed to get unearned. Even the little boys down in these Latin American countries where there are black people that look just like me and the rest of the people I grew up with get respect just because they're men. And so I realized then that respect is not an option. Respect is something that you get. Other thing is, a lot of women here in the United States, they say, I will submit if you do this. I will be cooperative if you do this. That's not an option either. Women are cooperative and submissive and feminine. And that's not something that you bargain for. That's not something that you have to pay for. They are that way. They are cooperative. They work with you around the house. They do the cooking, they do the cleaning, even if they're the ones who organizes the labor. One thing you really don't know that people don't ever tell you, a lot of these people in these countries in the Caribbean, South America, et cetera, they have workers that come in and do the cooking and the cleaning. Even some of these folk in what we would call these small third world countries, island type, they all have workers, because you can get somebody to work for $1 a day. And so if you have a small amount of money, you can live like a king down there. So now I'm beginning to compare and contrast. Now this is before the whole passport bro movement blew up in 2020 after 2022 after Kevin Samuels died. So here it is, I'm getting this good treatment. So I decide, well, let me go ahead and just, my kids are getting older. Let me start making plans for my next phase in life, So I rented a house in a place in Puerto Plata, which is a little bit away from the fray of some of the tourist spots, but it's in the community. This beautiful house in a section of Puerto Plata, Dominican Republic, in the Cibao, or the north coast of the island, called Torre Alta, which means tall tower. And my God, those were some of the best days of my life. I'd actually had a little lady I was dating. This is, I dated a couple women off and on. But, I had a little lady I was dating. It kept me safe, you know what I'm saying? You don't want to be down there with money and time. I would literally travel to the DR every 2 weeks and stay for about 10 days. And that was the time period where I wouldn't have my kids. Because remember, I would only see my children, based on the standard custody agreement, 6 nights a month. So here I am paying child support. I would see my children 6 nights a month. And so other than those 6 nights, I really didn't have anything to do for the other 30, 31 days in the month. So I need to figure out what I was doing. My office practice, my law practice was blowing up. We had cell phones and Zoom calls and all this other stuff. So it's like, I don't really need to be in my office per se. I had other lawyers doing the day-to-day work, so it's just unnecessary. So what do? Just sit at home? Nah, I was traveling, at least 10 days a week. So, 10 days a month. So I was out and about, enjoying myself, seeing what the world had to offer. So that's pretty much what I did my late 30s all the way up through my late 40s. So about 10 years straight, I just traveled. And of course, when I come home, it'd be all about my kids. I'd take them to their different functions and et cetera, and activities and whatnot. But my perspective on life began to change. Dating a Afro-Latina woman or a Dominican woman, forced me to immerse myself in the culture. It forced me to learn the language to the point that I would say that I am proficient for an American. I've taken in LA, I took a couple of Spanish courses in what we call junior high school. Many of you all call it middle school. But that was the extent of it. It wasn't until, that was helpful because it taught me the structure of the language, but it wasn't until I actually moved to these folk country and lived amongst them and had to go to the stores and interact and, basically live like a Spanish speaker. That's when I really began to learn. So here I am, 10 years in, me and the young lady, we decided to, part ways and whatnot, and that just opened the door up. And so about them last 2 years, man, I rented a villa by the beach over in what's called Cabarete. I mean, when I tell you it was a gorgeous villa, it was only $1,600 a month. I rented a villa, and my God, talk about a turn up. That was the term they used back then. It was me and all the women. You know what I'm saying? And see, I wouldn't meet the ones on the street. I'd import mine from some part of the island, like Santiago or Santo Domingo. The ladies I was dealing with, they had like nail shops, and they were business owners and whatnot. Still fine though, okay? Still gorgeous, beautiful, okay? And man, we just have a good time. We just have a good time. I let them do whatever the hell they want. They end up cooking and cleaning. I mean, when I tell you, it was just me and a house full. No friends, no homeboys, no nothing. Just me and a house full. And, the thing was, having been there for 10 years, I was more inundated into the society. So I knew friends. I had a dental office down there. I had a lawyer. I got a business down there. So I was basically living like a successful Dominican man down there. And the same thing, and at the same time I had the villa in the DR, I also had an apartment in Parque 93 in the heart of Bogota, Colombia. And so I would fly from I take my taxi driver would bring me to Santo Domingo. I take that Avianca flight over to Bogota, Colombia, hang out there. In my little 10-day period when I'm on vacation, I would start off here, make a big circle all the way through the Caribbean, go over to Colombia, and then fly back up to Houston. So I had an apartment there, a house here in Houston. I had my villa down in Colombia, and I was just living a life. This is my, early 40s, late 40s. You see what I mean? Speaking Spanish. I had lawyers here. I had businesses here, et cetera, et cetera. And then I looked up one day, man, and I'm like, man, the brothers that I used to take their little posts and put them on the internet so people could see, the brothers are still suffering. The brothers are still dealing with things. You guys know that the foundational Black American birth rate is 1.36. That's 1.36 children are born to every Black American woman. What that means is, and once a nation gets below 2.1, that's replacement value, they don't recover. There's nobody's. So we're at 1.36. When I say foundational Black American, that's just a new iteration on American Negro. It's a new iteration on colored. Okay? It's a new iteration on what we used to call Black American or African American. There's no distinction from an American Negro and a foundational Black American. You all know what I mean when I say the American Negro. We're talking about people who pre-existed the Civil War, who can trace their lineage back to plantations, and before that, actually, because there's a lot of Black people, especially back in Massachusetts and North, man, they were free the whole time. Okay? But I'm sitting here enjoying my luxurious life, reaping the benefits of my success and hard work, and my brothers are still suffering. My brothers don't even know that not only is the grass greener on the other side, okay, because if people will quickly tell you, oh, the grass is not greener on the other side. Okay, you might be right. The grass might not be greener on the other side, but they got pineapples and mangoes and other delicious fruit on the other side that we want to taste. Okay, you understand? So that's why the brothers are going to Brazil. That's why the brothers are going to Colombia. That's why the brothers are going to the DR. And it does not matter that a couple of brothers get unalived. It don't matter that a couple of brothers get robbed. You can get robbed in Atlanta trying to meet a chick. You can get robbed in Compton. Matter of fact, that was common, okay? It was common for you to get set up by some woman back in the day when I was a youngster. She set you up and you think it's called a honeypot. She sets you up thinking you're going to get the delicious treats and end up getting jacked or smoked or robbed by her homeboys from her set. You see? So, you know, brothers are willing to take that risk because we take the same risk here in the United States. So that ain't going to scare us. You understand? And then for those people talking about, oh, you can catch some, you know, you have some alphabets messing around with them women. You're going to catch them alphabets that you can't get rid of. Yeah, you can get that right there in Atlanta, Philadelphia. You can get it in New York. You can get it in Houston. You can get it anywhere in America, period. You can get it in Des Moines, Idaho, okay? So brothers are willing to take that risk. You understand? But the bottom line is what I was coming to realize is there's so many black men who don't realize that life is better. Keep in mind, I'm the one who did everything they said you're supposed to do on a high level, okay? I did everything they said you're supposed to do. It didn't work out for me. Nobody told me that I had options. Nobody told me that I had what was called a black man's option. And what I mean by that is, when you are a foundational black American, when you are an American Negro, okay, whether you're going to France or Rio, there's already been some black American men who have been there. Whether we've been there via social media, regular media, sports and entertainment, the whole world has heard about a Muhammad Ali. The whole world has heard about a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan. The whole world has heard about a Michael Jackson. The whole world has. So they know who you are when you get there. Now that's different from a Haitian or a Jamaican or an African from Nigeria or Ghana, okay? They know who we are. We are Americans, and we are those black Americans, those fast running, high jumping, singing, rapping, ball playing, fighting, brash, beautiful, foundational black America. We are that American Negro that the whole world looks up to. We are those men, you see, the ones that set the trend for the rest of the black people and the rest of the world right here as a very small minority. So they know us, you see, they know who we are. And so when you go to these places, hey, you are already good. Now, I can't speak on how Africans get treated or how other black people from Caribbean, but I know I was treated like a king. You know, that I was treated wonderfully, especially when they find out, oh, you're an American. Oh, okay. Oh, you're a black American. Oh, all right, cool. So, you know, that being the case, man, I was like, man, the rest of the brothers should feel this, man. You know, and keep in mind, we talking like 2015. So at about the same time I start really traveling, that's when you had the rise of what is called the Manosphere. Okay, now it predated that because let me give you a little history. So you had something called the men's rights movement pop up. I would say it popped up in the 1970s and 80s when they start changing the laws that kind of favored women in the family court system, the divorce laws, no-fault divorce. Because see, before that, a woman had to point out that her man was doing something to her, he was cheating on her, he was abusive, et cetera, et cetera. You had to have a reason to get a divorce. You couldn't just go in there and after signing these documents and, you know, and undergoing the ceremony in front of a religious affiliate, say, oh, I'm just ready to get a divorce now. You had to have a reason. So there had to be fault. There had to be a cause of action. But after the institution of what is called no-fault divorce, well, you know, the divorces skyrocketed. Women saw an opportunity to, and this is all women saw an opportunity to basically take a man's money and run off with the gifts and prizes. You see, now me, it didn't work like that for my ex-wife. I got everything. I got the houses, the cars, I got it but, you know, then again, you know, I'm a lawyer and it is what it is, you know. But bottom line is a lot of men get taken to the cleaners. A lot of men lose access to their children. They lose access to their wealth. They literally have to start over again. And so here we are in 2015, and a lot of men are like, after the men's rights movement fell, because, you had a lot of simps in office, just suck it up and be a man. And so they just let the women get away with it. So now here we are in 2015, you have something called the black man, or you call the manosphere. Now, the reason that the black manosphere and the manosphere separated was because it's a lot of racism. When you in the manosphere proper, okay? And I'm not naming these people, but Golden Raging Eagle, Sandman MGTOW, all these different type folk, they were more what we call men going their own way, MGTOW, because they realize that the system is rigged and the only way to win is to not play. No matter what you do, whether you got a prenup, whether you try to marry a younger woman, whether you try to marry a woman with money, you always get hammered in the end. They were tired of having their children taken and their wealth taken. The system was set up against men. That's the way they feel. These are white men saying this, not black men. Black men were having the same experience. In fact, many black men will tell you that black men went their own way back in the 1960s when the civil rights, after the civil rights movement and when they start instituting all this welfare. Shout out to everybody in the chat room. I ain't forgot y'all, but I'm just trying to roll through this. I appreciate everybody. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you hadn't already. If I didn't say that, and thank you so much for your subscribing and all that other stuff, and all the people who contribute to the super chat. If you learn something, I should earn something. That's generally what I say, but anyway, let me get back to what I'm saying. So a lot of men realize the game is rigged. I don't want to play. And white men came up with something called men going their own way. It's called MGTOW, okay? This was an offshoot of the manosphere. And you literally have men saying, I'm not going to date. I'm not going to marry. One of the first people I listened to was a gentleman named Sandman MGTOW. He's a white dude out of Canada, okay? All of the stuff that you hear today, okay, started then. All right. Now I want you to understand something. Even though I say the manosphere was started by white men, if you go back even further than that, there's a person, his name is Barbar. They call him Barbarossa. Barbarossa is a Afro-Latino. He is a black man who speaks Spanish. He was the first person, and you can look him up right now. Just Google Barbarossa on YouTube. Still there, 16 years ago, okay? Because this is when these phrases first start coming up. Men going their own way. Men not playing the game. The juice is not worth the squeeze. Terms that you hear, reiterations of that. Here we are in the second, maybe third or second generation of the manosphere. You hear it now. You hear it in Nick Fuentes. When you really listen, if you get past the racism, and I think he's a little shit, okay? I'm just saying. But Nick Fuentes is basically the second generation of the manosphere. See, and this, I want y'all to hear me, okay? Kevin Samuels was the high point of the manosphere as to relationships. And now what you see is Nick Fuentes is the high point of politics that came out of the manosphere. Because if you look back 16 years ago and you listen to Golden Raging Eagle and Sandman MGTOW and some of the other founders, and look, I'm not going to try to go through all the names, but the people who know. The people who've been listening to YouTube, if you know, you know. You understand what I'm saying. I don't need to go into all the names. Shout out to all the progenitors, etc. Bottom line is, these folks have been saying this for years. You saw the relationships. You see what it did to American relationships. Women are not looked at the same since Kevin Samuels. And he wasn't the first one. He took the talking points. He wrapped them up. He did what he did as a brilliant salesman. He repackaged them. He put it out there for the world, everybody to see. And this is what happens. These are the politics of the manosphere now entering into the manosphere, and the talking points have basically taken over American politics. Period. Everybody's like Nick Fuentes, whether you like this little ass or not, okay? He is reiterating the same talking points. He is saying things like, yeah, we need to take women's rights to vote away. We need to take that. You know, I don't believe in that. I definitely don't want to take women's rights to vote. I want them to get out there and have as many rights as I do. I want them to be able to get taken to family law court and have their houses and their money took. I believe in equal rights for everyone. Okay, I want to treat all women just like men get treated. That's how I want to treat. I want them to have to do everything that men have to do equally. Okay, not just equal outcomes, but equally. But what I'm trying to explain to you all, family, is that what you see happening right now has been going on for about almost 20 years now. It's just that you all, these are incels, these are red pills. And now you got an incel who is literally directing the Republican Party, a 27-year-old Nick Fuentes, who is the voice of most white men in America under 30. I hate to say it like that, okay, because that's scary to a lot of people. But white men under 30, that's their leader. And he's the second generation from the manosphere. And so what you all have to understand is I'm a living example of someone who came from the black manosphere. And remember, we separated the black manosphere and what we call the white manosphere because it's like, man, y'all are racist. We don't want to be around y'all with that. We have our own issues and our own situations that we have to deal with. We're not trying to fool with you all like that. So we had people who popped up like BGS IPMOR. IPMOR is an acronym that stands for, oh my God, I can't believe IPMOR. I forget what it is, but it's something like Enlightened Brothers. I don't know, but bottom line is BGS IPMOR. You had other men like Obsidian, Mumia Ali, or Obsidian, who we just call Obsidian. These brilliant thinkers. It was Obsidian. I remember, doggone it, it was probably 2018. I'm at my condo in the Dominican Republic exercising in the morning in my backyard overlooking the ocean, and I would be listening to Obsidian. And Obsidian said something. He said, the problem with the American Negro going into the 21st century is not racism. He said the problem that exists in the black community is that black men and black women don't get along. Darn it. And that stuck with me. That's now almost an 8-year-old statement. Obsidian's still around. Y'all check him out. Tell him Uncle D sent you. Obsidian said that, and I realized, you know what, you're right. And it harkens back to the same thing that I said in that post that went viral when I said black men and black women don't respect black men. And I understand that if you don't respect somebody, you don't respect their boundaries, and there's going to be conflict. And if there's conflict, that is basically saying you don't get along. So here he was saying the same thing that I said in different words. Black men and black women don't get along. That's why you have a lower birth rate, 1.36. That's why you have it. Now, if we take all the immigrants and everybody and we put them in together, black people's population actually has increased. Okay? The overall black population in America has increased. But as far as that small percentage of black Americans who exist in this world, it's only a 1.36%. If you look at the first generation immigrants and second generation immigrants, they at this point comprise 25% of what we call the black population. Keep in mind, in 1965, there were only 50,000 Africans in this country. 1965 is when they brought in that immigration law, and they start bringing Africans over, and they really start showing up heavy after that, because before that it was literally a racial ban preventing Asians and Mexicans and Latinos and Africans from even coming to the United States. But after that, everybody showed up, and so now here they are populated. They've taken over New York. They've taken over a lot of the East Coast enclaves. They've taken over places like Houston and Dallas. You know, Nigerians everywhere. You know, Caribbeans have always kind of, Florida, whatever. There's plenty of them down there. But now they're starting to come and everywhere, and it's to the point where 25% of what we call, like I said, 25% of what we call the black population is now, of African, first generation African, second generation Africans, Caribbeans, etc. So, they're reproducing. They're showing up. Black Americans aren't, because we don't get along. And it's because of lack of respect and deference given to the man, the same respect and deference that I received when I was in those Caribbean countries. Again, I was raised in Los Angeles, California. I was raised by a family from Mississippi. My grandmother was a matriarch. I had that whole matriarchal, Meemaw, grandma upbringing. I mean, I was raised. The men kind of, did their thing, and the women ran the house, et cetera, cornbread, collard greens, all of that. You understand? I'd hear the stories about that. So I am foundational Black American culturally, 100%. You understand? That's all I know. I've been inundated in it. But even then, I knew there was something wrong with it. Even then, I'm like, why are the men doing all the work and, making all the sacrifices, not really getting the respect that they're supposed to get? That ain't really, I'm not feeling that. It was something in my bones that told me that is not how I'm trying to live, And so I always rejected. So here we are. Let's fast forward. We at 2018, 2019, and I'm receiving all this good treatment. I'm starting to be able to compare and contrast. I see how the world is supposed to be. I'm looking back at my marriage, realizing, you know what? It wasn't me. It wasn't me. You understand? Because there's a lot of other men now coming to the same realization. It's not us. It's not us. It's the way the society is set up. And so now here we are in 2025, and you got people like Nick Fuentes popping up now. The social scene is crap. You got women now complaining about how they can't pay a man to take them out. You can't get men to speak to you. And it's because this is what's been happening over the past 16 years. You have men literally realizing that the juice is not worth the squeeze. Why would they hit on a woman when that's just nothing but a debt? I'm going to beg you to take you on as a debt. I got to pay for it. Society expects me to pay for you, the children, everything. You don't take any responsibility. You dodge accountability. If anything goes wrong in a relationship, if you cheat on me, it's my fault. This is how warped the system is, and this is why these young men are like, I'm done. You see? And this is why men like myself are like, nah, I'm not going to play the game. Just not going to do it. And that was just the relationship aspect of it. Now, let's look at the politics of what's going on. People like Nick Fuentes are not going anywhere. People like Nick Fuentes, you got black people like Nick Fuentes and white people like, and let's set aside the racism, okay? Because he's racist little shit, but that's how white men specifically assert themselves. When they want to galvanize, the masses of white men and reassert themselves, they go straight racism, patriarchy. Let's put these women back in place and send these brown people and black people packing. That's what they do. That's their way of asserting. It's a man thing. They start hollering the N-word, and that's what they do. Okay? It's a flare-up, if you will. Other men do different things. You know what I'm saying? Some men start relating back on their warrior history and warrior, past, different men, whatever. But bottom line, that's the way white men reassert themselves. Black men in America have been dealing with white folk like that for centuries. We know how they are. You see what I'm saying? All that gets folded up on the football field. All that gets folded up in the boxing ring. All that gets folded up and packed away on the basketball court. You see what I'm saying? So I'm used to it. I played American football. I practice jiu-jitsu. I get it. You smite that. You understand? You kill all that and bring them back to reality. But the bottom line is that is what they're doing right now. And this is what you see happening. We saw it happening when the brothers came back from World War I asserting themselves. You see? That's when we had Red Summer 2020. You see what I mean? When black men began to assert them, they came in Red Summer 2020, they burned down a whole bunch of towns, black people that built up after slavery. They burned them all down. You understand? To assert themselves on some racial negativity. That's what they do. You understand? After we freed ourselves that little short time period during Reconstruction, black people were asserting themselves. We were congressmen. We filled the House of Representatives and the Senate seats up with black people, white people. Once that the deal was made between the North and the South, and the federal troops left the South, white men came back and asserted themselves on some racism. Wow, we're gonna put these N-words back in their place. You see what I'm saying? So that's it. That's what happened. So, and even after the civil rights movement, you know, these blacks are coming out here getting all these rights. White men reasserted themselves by, you know, war on drugs, tough on crime, locked a whole bunch of black men up, still dealing with that. And so now it's kind of like the same thing. Black people are doing very well for themselves. We got 1.7 million millionaires in the United States. We have these big houses. We're doing well. And so you got white people who are suffering, and they want to reassert themselves and come, you know, let's put these brown people. So it's a cycle. It happens. This is America. It's something that black people have been trying to explain to immigrants and all these Indians. And Indians are catching hands right now. White folk are putting these MAGA Indians in their place. And I'm not talking about feather. I'm talking about red dots. They're putting these red dot Indians back in their place in a major way right now. Golly, man. D'Souza, Vivek, all these Cash Patel, man, y'all are blacker than us. Okay? You are blacker than us. You thought they was going, look, just because your proximity does not mean acceptance. Just because the white man lets you stand next to them and say the thing and be his puppet does not mean he accepts you as white. Okay? It doesn't matter how much money or education you have. We have a word for that in the black community. It's a racial epithet related to a nocturnal animal that is typically gray, black, and white that digs through the trash. Okay, I'm not gonna say that because this is not a nature special, and I don't want YouTube to ban me. But bottom line is, there's some people right in the chat room that'll tell you exactly what you are right now. But you all are catching hands right now. But bottom line is, family, what you see happening right now is a manifestation from frustration of men dating back to, you know, for decades, related to being treated unfairly by a system that we build and maintain. Okay? And it started off with the social aspect with dating, and now you see it moving over to politics. So now you see the political repercussions of unhappy men in a society that men built. Now, women can say all the time, the patriarchy this, the patriarchy that, but now a lot of men are like, okay, well, you got it. Go ahead and handle it yourself. And so now you see women who are being, unfortunately, and this is unfortunate, you see them being attacked, and men are not doing anything. Men are not stepping up to take care of them and defend them by, you know, and I'm talking about strange women. They're not defending strange women from men trying to hurt them. You don't see men even giving up seats in crowded buses, public accommodations. You don't even see men oftentimes opening doors for women because we're no longer treating them as though they are, we're not treating them in a chivalrous manner. We are treating them like equals. We're treating women just like we're treating men. And unfortunately, they don't like that because what they wanted was equal outcomes. They didn't want equal rights and equal obligations, because along with equal rights comes equal obligations. Okay? Now, I know you all don't like this, okay? And it's hard. But women are going to be treated equal by these folk that you see now because you have made this decision. There's a lot of women say, oh, no, I don't like feminism anymore. Yes, you do. You like it. You like it. And even in that conversation between Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, he said, you know, women like the idea of feminism. They don't like, but they don't necessarily like, they don't want equal rights. And see, women wanting equal rights and not equal outcomes is something that they've been talking about on the Manosphere since 2016. And there's another movement, okay, that a lot of black men have gravitated toward, and it's called SYSBM. Now, that particularly appealed to me. SYSBM. Somebody type that in the chat room. I'm trying to educate you now. I know you don't like what I'm saying, okay? I know you don't like what I'm saying. SYSBM. Save yourself, black man. Save yourself, black man. Because, see, at some point, and remember what I said earlier, black men have gone their own way since the 1960s when welfare took over and kind of put black men out. Okay? Save yourself, black man means, hey, I got to look out for myself. Because nobody else is. Barack Obama, the first quote-unquote president of African descent, came up with a My Brother's Keeper program, and it was shot down by black women. Ice Cube had a contract with Black America, and he went on, I guess a podcast with several black women, and they basically said black women are their own entity and they have their own needs. And Ice Cube said, well, a contract for America includes all black people, men and women. Black women have already designated themselves as separate. So now black men are saying, well, we're going to save ourselves, black men. And so me sitting there in this, luxurious life with money and all this sort of stuff, I'm like, man, I got to at least tell my brothers there's some opportunities in other places. And if I put my face out just like, I put the brothers and let them speak for themselves, and I advocated on behalf of black men, I'm going to start taking what I did on Facebook and move to YouTube. So around about 2000, I start moving to YouTube. And I start speaking about these issues. And I start telling brothers, hey, look, man, there's other opportunities in other places. Go do the passport bro thing. Do the passport bro thing. It's like it'll open your mind up to see what's available out there. I remember a song, let me not get off track, but the bottom line is you can go other places, and if nothing else, it expose you to a different culture, and you'll see how you're supposed to be treated. And then once you know how these other men are getting treated, how you're supposed to be treated, and then you come back to America, if you make that choice, you didn't do it blind. You did it from a place of understanding. You decided to after you traveled overseas and you experienced good treatment and having a woman cater to you and a society cater to you just because you're a man. And if you still decide that you want to come back to what we call the Matrix, fine. I'm still a passport bro. You understand me? Yeah, I'm married now. Got a beautiful wife, Afro-Latina wife, a beautiful, intelligent, brilliant sister of African descent, love her, appreciate her. But I'm still a passport bro. You understand? I'm still SYSBM. You understand? And so nothing has changed. And so I say all that to say, when it comes to foundational black Americans delineating, it, as an advocate for black men, it is in our interest to make sure that we get all the resources, all the opportunities, all the financial benefits that our foundational black American, our American Negro ancestors, our colored ancestors fought and died for. What we don't want is people coming from other countries utilizing what was fought and set aside for us. Because, see, given the opportunity, these racist white folk who don't necessarily want to have to deal with the problem of the American Negro, they'll put a bunch of Africans and give them scholarships because they said they're African American. They'll put them, you look at all the local, look at some of the universities, medical schools, HBCUs filled up with African professors, and they're good. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying there's not black American, foundational black American professors there. But what I'm saying is those positions were set aside for black people from America by black people from America's ancestors. And it's no different than if I went to a country like Belize as a foundational black American and me and 10,000 other foundational black Americans start taking up these positions in politics and taking up these positions in the universities. And then not only that, we didn't intermesh into the culture. No, we decided to tell the people in Belize how they should run things. And then the people in Belize said, well, y'all need to go back to America with that, because this is how we do things down here. So it is in my interest as a foundational black American man culturally to make sure that the resources set aside for our people, and when I say our people, I'm specifically talking about the American Negro, the foundational black American, the coloreds, right? It behooves me to make sure that we get what we're supposed to get. So that delineation falls right in line with my position as an advocate for black men. Now, black women, black America, they have their own advocates. They don't need me. They got everybody. They got Oprah. They got everybody. They got all the preachers, all the Baptist preachers, all the Pentecostal preachers. They got everybody. We don't have people, you see? And when I started being an advocate for black men, it wasn't something that's popular. I took a lot of hits, you see? Took a lot of hits, period. But that's okay, because as an advocate, you are going to take it. It's no different than if I was an advocate for criminal justice reform. I don't have to go to prison to be an advocate for criminal justice reform. I could be an advocate for wild animal life in Yellowstone. I don't have to live there. But it just so happens that I am culturally a foundational black American man, and I'm an advocate for black American men, you see, or foundational black American men. And that's it. That's the gist of what I do. Now, I will say this. The same thing that Kevin Samuels did to relationships and opening the eyes of the population of the world, especially the Western world, as to female nature, information that he gathered over the years from listening to other people in the manosphere, both the white manosphere and the black manosphere, that's going to have the same effect. Nick Fuentes is going to have the same effect on politics. And you don't have to like what I'm saying. You can see it happening right now. You can see men separating themselves politically from women. You got a lot of very liberal women. You got a lot of men going right, far right, even black men. Black men have been the most egalitarian group of men in America for centuries. We've always given our women deference. We've always given them the right to do whatever the hell they want to do. But even now, you got black men saying, "Nah, I'm not going to deal with you because I'm just not going to deal with it. Our politics are too different." You see, and so we don't even see each other eye to eye, which is why you had 21%, that's double digits, 21% of black men who voted for Donald Trump in the last election. And let me tell you something. I don't regret my vote, because if you look at this from a non-emotional standpoint, none of what's going on right now is affecting me as a successful foundational black American. I'm not an immigrant. I'm not poor. My family's been in this country for hundreds of years. It don't affect me. The immigrants and the people who receive EBT, that's who that affects. Those people who benefit from the federal government and federal government jobs, that don't affect me, because as a foundational black American man, the United States, the federal government, well, they've never done anything for us. You don't have hundreds of thousands of millions of black men with jobs in the federal government. That's black women. They did that to empower the black women so they could destroy the black man. And so you don't need that black man. Let me give you this federal job and these federal set-asides and these federal education loans. Black men don't get that. So why is it that you all would think that black men will be affected by what Donald Trump is doing? We're not. Not necessarily not the successful black men. I'm just saying, this is it. It's no different than when people say, well, why is it that, here we are dealing with the fentanyl crisis. Why is it that white people are affected? Why is it that black people aren't affected by fentanyl? It's because the painkillers that they gave out back in the 80s and 90s, when the kids were breaking into the closet, their white parents' closets getting painkillers, they were giving these white folks these painkillers, and they wouldn't give them to black people because they literally believe, this is a case of medical racism, they literally believed that black people didn't experience pain. Or if they were faking it so they wouldn't give them the painkillers. So it was racism that caused for these medical providers not to even prescribe these painkillers. And now here we are, 20 years later, the generation of kids that would pop pills and throw back some alcohol, break into mommy and daddy's liquor cabinet. Now they're strung out on fentanyl because when you ran out the painkillers, you went after the heroin, and then the heroin dried up, and now they're going after fentanyl. And so this is where it happens. So that's racism. Same thing with the situation. You know why black men and black women don't see the same, are not necessarily seeing these political issues the same way? Is because we as black men don't benefit from the federal government. We don't. We don't receive welfare. That's a black woman thing as far as the black community. We don't receive we don't receive welfare benefits. That's a black woman thing. We don't get it. So why do we care? You know, and I'm just, look, family, I want you, and I want the black women who are listening to this, I want you to particularly understand, I'm going to always tell you the hard truths. I'm always going to look you in the eye and tell you, because the world that I grew up in was a harsh, hard world. The world that I live in now is brutal. And I sit here today explaining to you that the only people that truly care for you are the people that will tell you the cold, hard truth unabashedly. I'm the one that told you all that the Africans who participated in the slave trade after 1808 when it became illegal, and they still participated in it, like with the Clotilda incident and the Wanderer incident. Y'all can go ahead and look that up. Those people owe reparations to black people. And there were hundreds of other ships like that. And they have black people who are in this country and other countries in the Western Hemisphere who are entitled to reparations for the land that was taken from them by the Africans who stole them and the resources. We are entitled to that. I told you all that 5 years ago. I did a broadcast on that lasted in total 8 hours over a series. I did the background, I explained to you, and now here we are in 2025. Folks are finally catching up. There's a book. Matter of fact, I brought this book out. This book right here, Black AF History, unwritten whitewashed story of America, Michael Herriot. He talks about in 2015 how the first Spanish, I believe Portuguese, came down to Africa. And he basically explains in the first chapter how Africans participated in the slave trade and how they traded. They needed these black bodies over there. And so, look, what I'm trying to explain to you all, family, is even back then it was unpopular. Oh, no, you're angry because you were still on that Pan-Africanism. But I've always been ahead of the curve. I'm always going to be ahead of the curve. There's never going to be another YouTuber or social media commentary who's going to tell you what's about to happen before it happens and you're uncomfortable. They're not going to do it because they don't see the world from the perspective. I just accept the world for how it is. I'm a pragmatist. It is what it is. You don't see it happen. Black people in this country known as American Negro, in 50 years, we won't be here. There'll be black people in this country. There'll be more black people in America, but they won't be what we call culturally foundational black American. And shout out to my man Medium Man. The brother had a video the other day. He said, yeah, shit. He said, the marriage rate for black men is going up. By 2027, it'll be 40%. The marriage rate for black women is going down. And at that same time, it's going to drop. So the black marriage rate for black men is going up, and the marriage rate for black women is going down. What does that tell you? It tells you that they're not getting married to each other. They're marrying out. It tells you that brothers do want to get married. They are getting married. But again, as Obsidian said, black people, the problem facing black people in America is they don't get along. That's it. That's the problem we're dealing with. I don't know how you reverse that. I don't know if we can do that after years of systematic division. I don't know. I don't think there's any hope, actually. But, I mean, there's 2 billion people of African descent on the planet. So we'll still be here as a group. But this particular niche called Foundational Black American, this particular culture that's produced jazz and hip-hop and some of the greatest freedom fighters across the planet and invented all these things, that people are going away. That's what's happening. You see? And white people see the same thing for themselves. They see immigrants coming in, taking over the country. And that's why you have the rise of somebody like a Nick Fuentes. This is what's happening. These are the politics. And it all started on YouTube with the Manosphere and the Black Manosphere, which split off from the Manosphere proper. So, again, I'm an advocate for black men. Don't get it twisted. Now, lately, because of the racial climate, I've decided that let me go ahead and try to fend off some of these negative stereotypes that these white folk are throwing off. These because you know they throwing a tantrum. So I might need to take the opportunity, take this time to go ahead and you know get my tennis racket and bow, hit some of that back across the bridge. You want to talk about EBT? I'm gonna talk about white folks on EBT. Okay, you want to talk about the crime rate? I'm gonna talk about the crime rate in the white community. You want to talk about black on black crime? I'm gonna talk about white on white crime. You see, and that's what I'm doing now, because at this point we do need unity. You know, we can get back to disparaging each other in public. You know, I guess when this is over in 20 or 30 years, after this tantrum is over. But at this particular point, our open enemy is using the things we say against each other against us. And that does not benefit black men, okay? That does not help me as an advocate for black men. The reason I attack these nocturnal animals, these black people who think that, and I'm talking about black Americans, these folk who think they can go stand next to white people and be the puppets of white people and say all this racist stuff, because that's not being, it's not beneficial to black men. And the reason I support black men in the first place, and this is the point that most people don't get, is because you can't even have a black community. You don't even have the building blocks of a black community unless you have strong, healthy, educated black men who are knowledgeable. So that's it. So I appreciate everybody's time and energy. I got to go ahead and get to court. Thank you so much for your time. Please, if you enjoyed the broadcast, hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Shout out to everybody who's hung out with me for this, lengthy broadcast. But again, just understand, okay? A lot of men are like me. We got this way organically, okay? I started off black kid in the hood, did everything I was supposed to do, tried to do it the right way, got married right after I got out of university. It didn't work out. I began to explore the world. I see how I'm supposed to be treated. I began to develop the same sort of position that a lot of men in America, of all colors of America, this system that we have to build and maintain as men is not working for us, so we're not playing the game. I went the passport bro route. Let me just go somewhere else. I don't need to get married. I'm just going to enjoy this good treatment for the rest of my life. Okay, you know what? I found a woman. She conforms to what I've become accustomed to being treated like. Cool, I'll do it. But now, that's just one path, because you got a lot of other men who say, nah, I'm not playing the game at all. I'm just going to move. And that's it. That movement is growing. Now you got the plains in Colombia, and they don't care what you say. You can't scare them away. They're going down there. They're getting that good treatment. They're going down there. They're enjoying it. They don't care about none of what y'all talking about. Whatever you all are trying to do to scare them away is scarier in the United States. STDs are scarier. Crime, getting robbed, getting beat up. The most dangerous place for a black man in the United States is hanging around other black people in the United States. You probably safer at a damn Klan rally than you are hanging out in the hood. I'm telling the damn truth, and you know it. You know I'm telling the truth. So the bottom line is, brothers are like, I'd rather take my chances overseas and risk life, limb, and health, but I'm gonna get some of this good treatment. And that's what you see happen. That's not gonna stop. The brothers traveling overseas, dating globally, you can call it passport pro. You don't even have to call it anything. It's an ideology now. It's just an option. It's the black man's option that they are now pressing. The other thing is, as far as the politics, it's about to get real divided. Not just on racial lines, but men versus women. And there's absolutely nothing that the Democrats, your Roland Martins, and these type folk, there's nothing you can do to convince these brothers to just keep dating, ignoring the obvious, that we're being used and abused by one party. And yeah, we might not like the racism in the Republican Party. I damn sure don't like Nick Fuentes, but damn, some of the stuff that he's saying as a young man are some of the things that many other young men are experiencing around America. And they want political change. If we got to live here, if we got to build this system and maintain this system and die for it, you better give these men some rights, or you're going to keep dealing with what you're dealing with. And that's men protesting, men voting with their feet, men going their own way. That's what you see happening. But anyway, man, God bless you all. Love y'all as I always say. This time, I'm out. What's up, what's up, what's up? Welcome, welcome, welcome to the broadcast. This is Uncle D. People wash their ass in the tub, Kamala Harris.
You were tuned in to Uncle D. D's Black Man Talk. Pull up, homie, take a seat. Don't be a shadow watcher every day. You learn something, then you earn something. Let them know and drop some money in the plate. It's getting cold, ladies, talking ratchet. There's a king here, grab your coat, zip your jacket. Keep quiet for a second, close your jaw. Attorney Spurling, this ain't pearly, know the law. Talking Constitution, pushing pins when he shooting, give him that. Masculinity, just for the record, sprinkle that. You can keep your cat, gotta cut it. Only cat he rubbing, gotta love it. I call it Molly Buddy. Gotta vote your interest, voting earns. Presidential, this is for the money that I earn. When you gon' learn, my people, that evil mixed with evil. No matter what you're doing, baby, this ain't equal. Sometimes when you're special, you get hated. The test is for the best, you're damn right, my people made it. Uncle D, Blizzard King, you been served, gotta notice. Now black men out here know we winning, gotta hold it now. Uncle D, you been served, get your notice now. Black men out here know we winning, gotta hold it now. Uncle D, you been served, get your notice now. Black men out here know we winning, gotta hold it now. Uncle D, you been served, get your notice now. Black men out here know we winning, gotta hold it now.
Hey man, I'll do what I do.
Somebody need to whip your ass.
Get up and whip him, Sweets.
Hey, don't be putting the money in my hand all rough.
Take your ass out here. You buy you a Floby and cut your own damn hair from now on.